Russia has unleashed a deadly attack on Ukraine. At least about 18 people have been killed in the city of Kryvyi Rih. The Ukrainian forces are retaliating with strikes on Russian energy infrastructures. Both nations have accused each other of violating a fragile ceasefire. Now, President Donald Trump's patience appears to be running out, and our next story takes a closer look as to what is unfolding on the battlefield.
Ukraine is under relentless assault. Russian missiles and drones are pounding Ukrainian cities. The war has reached a critical phase. Russia has unleashed a deadly attack in central Ukraine. These are images of Kryvyi Rih city reduced to ruins.
I have not seen the flash. I only heard the explosion. All windows, glass fell on me, but I was not hurt, surprisingly. There were dead children laying there, crying parents. Horrible. And there was the crater, and there was smoke coming out of it, where there was the hit.
Kyiv says at least 18, including 9 children, were killed in the devastating Russia airstrike. It calls it an assault against its civilians, claiming responsibility for the attack. Russia carried out the high-precision missile strike with explosive warhead on a restaurant where Ukraine's unit commanders and Western instructors were meeting. The Russian military claims the strike killed 85 Ukrainian military personnel and foreign officers and destroyed 20 vehicles.
A
ceasefire could have been reached by now, and it is Putin who rejects it. It is Moscow who has not been moving to a ceasefire since 11th of March. And it is they in Russia who need a war, and it is obvious that Russia cannot be forced to peace by talking or waiting.
Ukraine has launched a drone strike on an optical fiber facility in Russia's Saransk city, 820 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Amid all this, Russian envoy Kirill Dmitriev's visit to Washington has renewed hopes of a ceasefire. Dmitriev made it a point to share details of his U.S. visit, unlike Trump's envoy, Witkoff calling his U.S. visit successful and constructive, Putin's envoy. Posted a flight map showing his departure from Washington, even thanking X for verifying his account, but the U.S. is gauging Putin's move. Washington has issued a strong warning to Moscow at a meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Brussels.
President Trump's not going to fall into the trap of endless negotiations about negotiations. We won't know soon enough whether or not Russia's serious about peace. If they are, that'll be great, then we can move towards peace. If they're not, then we'll have to reevaluate where we stand and what we do moving forward about it.
Earlier, there was talk that Trump and Putin will speak over the phone, followed by reports that the White House had changed its mind. But now, with Kremlin stating there are no plans for a conversation between the two presidents in the coming days. The question is, can the Trump administration persuade Moscow to end the war? And is Putin in any mood to do so? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is happening in the Russia-Ukraine war at the moment, we're joined by Mr. Ron Alido, who's a former U.S. military officer, a former CIA contractor, and a former intelligence and operations officer at the Pentagon, and currently the chief executive officer of Miami Intelligence Agency. Mr. Alido, thank you very much indeed, sir, for joining us here on WION. Now, a lot of people are asking this question, even though there are negotiations and talks that are currently underway. But the intensity of the fighting seems to be going up. The Russians seem to be capturing more territory. If Russia was serious about these peace negotiations, why do we see these heightened attacks?
Well, the main issue right now, why there is not a ceasefire, like Ukraine has been asking for, the ceasefire of 30 days, is because one of the conditions that Russia asked for this ceasefire to come into place is for the Western countries, for the NATO countries, the United States, France, the United Kingdom, etc., to stop supplying weapons and equipment to Ukraine for those 30 days. And then Ukraine, obviously, and the Western countries, especially France and the United Kingdom, don't want to agree to that step. They want the ceasefire, but they want to keep supplying and keep bringing weapons and munition and equipment, military equipment to Ukraine during those 30 days. So that is the main showstopper. And as far as the peace process, obviously, each one of the two contenders, Ukraine and Russia, they will keep fighting the war normally with intensity until there is either a ceasefire or a permanent peace. Actually, they want to gain the upper hand in the negotiations, and the way in which both of them want to win the upper hand in the negotiation is by to controlling more terrain and by to be winning the war in a more clear way. So that's why the high intensity of the combat of the last weeks.
Interesting. Now, the other aspect, which seems to be pretty baffling, is the fact that the United States of America, under Donald Trump, has put forth a new minerals deal, which Trump wants Zelensky to sign on. But it does appear that Ukraine looks very reluctant, because a lot of people are saying that by signing this new minerals deal, which is so harsh on the Ukrainians, Zelensky would be signing off the sovereignty of Ukraine, effectively saying that if the Ukrainians agree to this minerals deal, they'd end up becoming an American colony. Do you think Donald Trump will push forth for Ukraine to sign this?
Yes, Donald Trump wants Ukraine to sign this as a way to repay for the close to $200 billion that the United States have been given to Ukraine during the last 3 years in equipment, in intelligence, in material, tanks, missiles, etc. So it's kind of a repayment. But this is actually kind of a master chess play from Trump, because this deal is very harsh in Ukraine. And most likely the ultra-nationalists of Ukraine, the very extreme right-wing parties of Ukraine, the Azov battalion, etc., the right sector, they are putting a lot of pressure in Zelensky for him not to sign the agreement. So if Zelensky signs the agreement, he might face either a coup or he might face an insurrection from his ultra-nationalist sector. But if he doesn't sign the agreement, then Trump will have a perfect excuse to stop and cut all further military aid. So it's basically a master chess play from Trump. And remember, the main issue with the peace agreement is that Ukraine refuses to give up the 4 territories, the 4 oblasts that Russia claims, plus obviously Odessa that obviously Russia wants. And this is very natural for Russia to want these 4 oblasts, because Russia has spent a lot of blood, a lot of resources, a lot of money, a lot of suffering, let's call it that way, during the last 3 years. So they want to be rewarded in some way, some form, and that's why they want this oblast.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Ron Alito, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you, no problem.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.